Sripad Bhakti Maharaj ki jai.
Sripad, Sri Guru Maharaj, Sri Gurudev, Sri Acharya Dev ki jai. Jai Giri Govardhana ki jai. Jai All Premanandi, Hari 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 Bol. All glory to the assembled devotees. All Premanandi.
All glories to Sripad, Bhakti Yoga Maharaj ki jai.
Want to look at the back of the book? There's a famous quote from Shikshastra of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And of course it's related to what we're going to talk about today. I like to say this one, it's a very important verse. Pranadapi Sunichena, Pranadapi Sahishnina, Manina, Amanina, Manadena, Kirtaniya Sanahari. One who is more humble than a blade of grass, tolerant like a tree, respectful to everyone, and free from desire for respect, is qualified to constantly practice Sri Krishna Sankirtan. I always quote about this grass, blade of grass, and the tree. You know, on our door. Only God can make a tree. There's more tall than a tree, and more humble than grass. Sometimes you think grass is how to be more humble than grass.
Well, step on it.
Step on it. How to be? How to be more humble than that. Then, if we realize how intricate a blade of grass is, that we can't even make a blade of grass ever. Right? No scientist in the world, no one can ever make a blade of grass. Then we realize its exalted position. And it's easy to understand how to be humble there, more humble there. Tree also, it says only God can make a tree. And trees are standing there. You carve your initials in it. You chop off a branch for fire. So many things. It's cold, heat. It's always standing there tolerantly. Good examples Mahaprabhu has given. All right, Vandana. Page 38. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Kamalam Sri Guru Vaisnavam Sa Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Natanvitam Tam Sajivam Sahadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lila Sri Satsangam Om Aganati Mirantasya Yanantana Salakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Udra Shri Gurvarga Vandita Mahavana Vandita Sada Orvapayam Paramahara Achalita Prajata Bhakti Bhakti Malajasya Nipitam Samrakshakam Sadhanam Vande Shri Gurudevam Ananta Shira Acharya Vayam Vijam Korva Vista Sapurikam Guru Dayara Ashisha Sambhushitam
Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipunam Sri Rupa Padananugam Govindabhidam Muskalam Paratanim Bhaktyamitam Sundaram Vande Vishwaguru Charivya Bhagavad Gita Pradam Devam Divyatanam Suchandavaranam Bharatachiranshitam Sarvananga Puram Sarikavaranam Vairagya Vidyam Guriyam Sri Siddhanta Bhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Garam Vande Tam Sugaram Madhita Saranam Yashishwaram Sri Dhanaram Sri Siddhanta Saraswati Gauri Madhava Bhakti Yoga Sankirtanai Mayavati Mingalodanagatam Udiyam Divanam Krishna Prema Sudhavidana Sukam Pradat Prabhu Tam Namaje Namo Krishuraya Bhaktavanuta Mortaye Poramagri Padmavinaya Radha Vishemine Vande Bhakti Vinodam Shri Gaurashakti Bhakti Sastraya Samrajam Radharasa Sudhanidhim Gauravadashita Shishar Vaishnava Vandyavedaham Tagnata Prabhu Mande Premavidi Vreda Vaishnavam Vanchakotarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Om Shatamakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavatar Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Namo Mahavaranaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Name Gaurajvishaya Namaha Praitam Suratopan Gaur Mamamana Terati Mansarvasva Padambojo Ratanamanamo Divyadarangaranya Kampavasa Shivarandagadasagasanasto Sridharajyo Devo Krishna Devi Smarani Vimana Sarasarandi Amsivata Tatasnita Karsham Venu Smaya Gopir Govinate Shri Vinayaya Tulasivya Vinayaya Kesavasya Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi Satyavajaya Namo Namaha Artana Mantra Guru Bhagavata Tadana Yasanta Gadgurunata Tatodaya Mukhiye Jai Bhagavata Shri Guru Varanga Gandharva Govind Arapasana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Krishna Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Is 105?
Which page?
105? Amara Jivanna Sada Papirata Nahika Punyera Resha
Amara Jivana Sada Papirata Nahika Punyera Resha
Arera Udvega Diachi Ekata Diachi Divera Klesha
Hare Ubega Diyachi Ekata Diyachi Jivera Klesha
Vidra Sukhavagi Apenahi Hari Ayahina Swarta Para
Nila Sukaragi Papina Hidari Nayahina Sartapara
Ara Suke Duki Saramiti Batsi Ara Duka Sukakara
Ara Suke Duki Saramita Basi Para Duka Sukakara
Ashrisha Kamana Vidibadi Mora Rodi Ramba Parayana
Asisha Kamana
Sada Vishaye Modita Hingsa Gavat Vibhushana
Madhava Sada Vishaye Mohita Himsa Garva Vibhushana
Nidalasya Hata Sukarye Virata Arke Akarye Ujogiyami
Nidalasya Hata Sukarye Virata Akarye Ujogiyami
Pratisthalagiya Satya Achadana Lobahata Sagatami
Pratisthalagiya Sajjana Sharana Bhuvahata Sadakami
O He He Na Dujana Sajana Vajita Aparadi Nirantara
Subhaka Ujana Sajjana Varjita Aparadi Nirantara
Subhakaye Sunya Sadanarta Mana Anaduke Jara
Subhakaya Sunya Sadhana Kamana Namaduke Jara Jara
Bhagate Kana Upaya Vihina Kate Dina Kunchana
Bhagake Kana Upaya Vihina Kate Dina Akinchana
Bhakati Vinoda Kabura Charane Hare Dukade Vedana
Bhakati Vinoda Prabhura Charane Kare Yukani Vidana
Amma Jivana Sada Pati Rata Ahika Punyera Lesha
Amara Jivana Sadapatirata Naika Punyera Vesha
Padera Udvega Diyachi Ekata Diyachi Divera Desha
Parira Udega Diyachi Ekata Diyachi Jivera Kesha Jai.
Does anyone have the calendar? Today?
On the phone.
Vaishnav calendar.
Yeah.
For Ekadasi. For Ekadasi.
Or
Nothing. Today it says today is Krishna Dashami. No fasting today.
Krishna Dashami, no fasting.
No fasting today. And then that's all it says.
we can eat.
You want me to go online? On the Maths calendar? You want me to go on the Maths calendar and see?
Oh, what is it? Why?
No, Maths.
Do you know what of course? This is actually this Amara Jivana comes from Sharanagati. One of the poems that he writes in the Sharanagati. Very important. All one of the important qualities that I mentioned at the beginning, humility. To gather around and look at the screen. Or maybe I can look it out. Okay? So, if you want to learn Bengali, you see all the letters up there, that's all Bengali letters. And the transliteration of those letters. Gu, li, ya. Buddha. And tro, mara. And Buddha tamare. Tamare, actually. I like that. Each letter there is represented down to here. So, Buddhiya tomare samsare ashiya hey nana vita yata. And it's the same, we can use the same melody singing this as we sang the other song. Buddhiya tomare samsare ashiya hey nana vita yata.
Tomara charane achiyami bali baduke rakata.
I don't know what to this chapter. But he says, forgetting about you, he's talking about Krishna, forgetting you and coming to the material world, I have undergone all sorts of suffering. Now I have come before your feet and will express my tale of distress. In the commentary, Srila Maharaj says, forgetting Uliya tomare nana vita vyata. He forgetting you. I have undergone all sorts of suffering. Undergoing the miseries of material existence is the result of forgetfulness of the Lord. This is described in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Manjalila 21:17, and Srimad Bhagavatam 11:237. If people only knew this, if people only understood this much, they could be free from all kinds of suffering. Why is this education not being given to people? It's the most important education in the world. So, undergoing the miseries of material existence is the result of forgetfulness of the Lord. So, very simple and to the point. And yeah, this is explained in all the scriptures. Here are just two instances. Krishna Buli Se Jiva Anandi Bahirmukha Ateva Maya Tarideya Samsaradi Dukha. When a soul outside the realm of time and space and the Tatastha Shakti turns away from Krishna and forgets him, Maya subjects him to the various miseries of worldly existence. It's found in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the Bhagavatam, Ayam Dritiri Abhineshi Abhini Veshatasya Ishara Apetasya Viparyayo Smriti Tanmaya Yato Buddha Abhajit Tam Patyai Kaya Sham Guru Deva Tatma. By the influence of the Lord's Maya, those who are intent upon selfish enjoyment and turn away from the Lord, forget the Lord, consider themselves to be the opposite of their true self, and become stricken with fear. Thus the wise should serve the Lord with unalloyed devotion, considering Sri Guru to be non-different from the Lord and most beloved. So what's being said here, huh? To consider themselves to be the opposite of their true self. What is that? How do we consider ourselves to be the opposite of what reality? What are we really? And what are we considering the opposite of that?
Well, many people think that I am it's the physical manifestation, and not many people think that I actually am a soul. It's two different things, opposite things.
But in the material conception, we think ourselves to be independent and enjoyer and the center of the world. The whole world is there for me to enjoy. And it's just the opposite of that. I am there to be enjoyed by the Lord. I'm there to give pleasure to the Lord, and everyone thinks the Lord has created everything for my pleasure. Opposite. I am the master of all I survey. I am the Lord of all I survey. Or I am the servant of all that exists. And all that exists is the Lord himself. are just opposite ideas. I'm the exploiter of the world. I am the dedicating unit of the whole.
I think there are still some people who don't consider themselves the center. There are still people who don't consider themselves the center of the world.
Mhm.
The majority are. This is what like I see with my eyes. But there are people who are not like that. And I guess probably those are the ones who understand the true self.
I think those who don't understand that God exists cannot be unselfish about that. Cannot think that the world has an existence that is not independent of them, of their desire. The only way you can understand Saranagati, surrender, and service is by understanding there's God.
Maharaj,
Huh?
I think what Zana is mentioning is for people who aren't completely self-absorbed, thinking they're the center, but still aren't so aware of Krishna, the Lord God. So then, if they're not the center and they're not aware of God being the center and always referencing that, then that means anybody and everyone they come in contact to is the center. So then they're helping everybody else. No problem, very nice. It's better than being selfish, but it's equally Maya, equally an illusion, because helping other people is only actually the right thing to do when it's still in reference to the center that is Krishna. So it's still in Maya. It's better than just being completely self-absorbed, but I think it's still Maya. People still aren't going to become fulfilled through that because, again, it's not connecting to the natural dynamic. Right?
Good effort on the camera.
I've not been a movie producer before.
He couldn't find you because you were so far down. He's got the top of your head. Good effort.
Extended self, like you extended yourself to community or
Yeah.
country or religious group, or it's like extended self. But actually, it's the same. It's just extended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
I've been watching on YouTube the documentaries about reincarnation, and it just helped me tremendously to understand more what we are studying. That, you know, like one little girl, I don't remember exactly the age, so when she died in her previous body, and then she was born when she was 3 or 5 years old, and she was talking to mom, and she said, I was this lady before, and she said, how do you know, like what happened? She said, when I died, I went to God, she said to God for a while, and then he told me that, I cannot recall exactly the details because I watched like so many of them, and she said that then you rest there for a while, and then he sends you back, and he said, I found you different parents now. I want you to be there with them. And then when you listen to the people's stories, and some people who even like became adults or who had a clinical death, and all of them saying the same thing about like going back to God, but nobody describes him like as a human being or something. Everybody describes a little bit differently, but it's like you go there and there is that love, and everybody loves everybody, and you meet there back your family, and there's some like light beings there, and they project love and peacefulness, and you feel like so good there, and you realize like what you have here was like so bad. And then you just want to stay there. And all these stories, and I was just listening to them, and you know, it just opened up, not opened up because I do the studies of Bhagavad Gita, right, and over here, and it just it makes so much sense. So like I'm not even afraid to die now, because I know that I'm going back to where I belong, and that I'm going back to Krishna, to God, and He has His own rules there.
But
And we're His children.
they come back because they haven't developed a relationship of service, of love with God. Otherwise, once that's developed, then we don't come back. Material nature. So I say atheists, they can't develop that love for God. And that whole transformation of one's being into a loving, surrendered, humble soul. That is the real function of the soul. We're not meant to be independent from that.
And you know what, like I had a conversation over the phone on Viber with my aunt who is across the globe, and she practices, I think, baptism or what, I don't even know, but something.
Baptist.
And and they believe like you go when you die, like you have to be buried or stuff like that, right? And then when I just spoke with her and I shared some of the specs of my knowledge, and I heard her on the phone getting really humble, and she said, yes, and I just give her examples, like, here's what it is about the reincarnation, in which she didn't believe. And so, but when I had like 50-minute talk with her, she just like, she would not reject it anymore. She would just, yeah. And then like I thought, here we go.
Okay, good preaching. All right, so now let's see what the note is saying here. Janani jatare chilama yakana vishama bandhana ase
Ekapara Prabhu dekha diya more achila idina dase.
While I was bound in the terrible confines of my mother's womb, you once revealed yourself to me, O Lord, yet since then you have deprived this poor servant. What this is talking about is that when a child is in the womb of the mother, there's all kinds of pain that the child suffers because of the womb of the mother is a different foreign element to the child's DNA or whatever. And so there's a what do you call that? Antibodies attacking one another, something like that. So the child feels that inside the womb. And in that state of complete misery, the child prays to God, oh, please relieve me of this suffering. The Lord appears to the child. And the child at that time prays to the Lord, if you relieve me of this suffering, I will be your servant. He actually says that he surrenders before taking birth in the human life. And then, but as soon as he's born, he sees everything around him, and he forgets everything. He just wants to take it in. So the first thing that the child does, he's crying for some food, some milk, something he wants. Immediately forgets the surrendering part. This is described in the scriptures. I don't remember it. Maybe none of us remember that, but that's what is explained there. And that's what this is talking about.
I always thought that a child feels safe in the mother's womb and protected.
That's what we think.
And, right, and protected. And when it's born, that's when it becomes traumatic, because now it's something new, and they're not safe and warm. And
yeah, it's very painful when you're taking birth.
yeah, sure.
For
for
both the mother,
as well.
both the mother and the child.
Mother and the child. That's right.
Oh, I
You
see.
see that even the food that the mother eats sometimes affect the child.
Oh,
If
sure.
it's something salty
Oh, sure.
or acid or something like that, he also suffer
Oh,
because he's receiving all that.
that's right.
So they said that when the child is like kicking, it's like sometimes like you don't feel like so good, like feeling some pain.
Oh, so cute, the baby's kicking,
Yeah.
but it's in pain.
Yeah, sometimes like some kind of pain.
I'm a
they said that-
vegetarian. Stop eating meat.
Yeah. For real.
Takana bhavinu janama paya Hari Baba Janatava Janama Haila
parimaya jale nahayana jnana labha.
At that moment, I thought I would engage in your service after taking birth. Yet, when I was born, I fell into Maya's trap, and not a trace of such consciousness remained. Now, this is explaining what we were just talking about. And the commentary, Sripad says, Nana viha yata, all sorts of suffering. This refers to the threefold miseries, the literally burning heat of material existence. Adhyatmika tap, miseries caused by one's body and mind. Adibhautika tap, miseries caused by the other souls. And Adidaivika tap, miseries caused by the demigods and demons. The suffering mentioned in this verse also refers to a fivefold state of affliction, or klesha. Avidya, ignorance of one's true identity as an eternal soul and servant of Krishna. 2. Asmita, identification with the mundane ego, mind and body. Abhinivesh, absorption in mundane experience. Raga, obsession with mundane pleasures and their paraphernalia. And dvesh, revulsion to dissatisfaction and its causes. Janani Jatare E Dinadasi, O Lord, you have deprived this poor servant. Only souls with the divine fortune directly meet the Lord, while bound within the womb of their mother, feel separation from him upon being born, and are able to say, O Lord, you have deprived this poor servant. This is not the case for all souls. Jiva Goswami Prabhu has established this conclusion with Sandarbhas. Maya Jali, Maya's trap. The Bhakti Yoga has described the function of Maya as follows. Varupatar hinanija shuka paran krishna vimukkan. Ader Maya danyan guna nigada jalai kalyate. Tata stular lingar dvidvida. Varanai klesha nikarar. Maha karmal anar gnati. Patitan svarga nerayo. From this Dasamala Shiksha. These are the 10 teachings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. With the shackles of the modes, the material nature, Sri Hari's Maya binds those who have turned away from him, become intent on selfish happiness, and forgotten the actual interests of their true selves, covering them with gross and subtle material bodies, and subjecting them to all sorts of suffering. Maya perpetually drags them by the heavy ropes of their karma throughout heavenly and hellish conditions. Also in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Maya's trap is described as Paribhutam Kala Jalabhiya, the fearsome den of time, which is the cause of the continuous succession of miseries produced by the body of birth, death, and so forth. Adrera Tele, Tailele, Talele, Tahele, Ajanera Kole, Asiya Katana Kala, Janaka Janani Snehete Buriya, Samsara Lagila Bala. As a son of adoring parents, I spent my time in their laps, smiling and laughing. Because of my mother's and father's affection, I forgot you and took pleasure in family life and material existence. Krame Dina Dina Balaka Haya Kelinu Balaka Saha Arakicho Dina Gyana Upajila Parapari Ahara. Day by day I grew into a young boy and played with other young boys. Later on my intellect developed and I studied my lessons day in and day out. Vidyara Gorave Brahmi Deshe Deshe Nana Uparjana Kari Swajana Palana Kari Ekamane Ulinu Tamaradhari Varagaye Ana Bhakati Vinoda Katiya Katarati Navajiya Tole Dina Vritagela Ekana Kiha Vegati. Then, on the strength of my learning, I traveled from place to place, earned money, and maintained my family with undivided attention, and I forgot you, O Lord. my aged, watching me know it cries in great distress. Not serving you, I have passed my days in vain. What will be my fate now? Ana uparjana, O svajana palana. Earn money and maintain my family. This is described by Sripad Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, Srimad Bhagavatam 213. Okay, Didraya Riyate Natam Yavanena Chaga Viha Avayaha. Divya Chartade Haya Raja Katumba Baharena Baranena. Okay, the lifetime of materialist householders is wasted by night in sleeping or engaging in sexual indulgence, and by day in earning money and maintaining family members. It's considered wasting because they're forgetting Krishna. And that energy that can be used for serving Krishna is used for something else. A little bit strict. People don't understand the spiritual aspect of life. It's there. Vidya Ravilasa
Katenu Kala Karama Sahasayami Tomara Charana Nabhaji Kala Ekana Sarana Tumi Padita Padita Bharasha Badila Gyana Gati Mani Seya Sabipala Seyana Durlava Seyane Agyana Gyani.
I spent my time absorbed in pleasures of learning with great confidence. I never served your feet. Now you are my shelter. Jada Vijayata
Mayara Vaibhava Tomara Bhajani Bhada Moha Janmaniya Anitya Samsare Jiva Ke Kara Ekara.
Studying continuously, my confidence that I would attain the fulfillment of my life through knowledge increased. Yet that hope was futile, and that knowledge was useless. I now know such knowledge to be ignorance. All mundane learning is an exhibition of Maya, an obstacle to your service, brings about infatuation for a temporary world, and makes an ass of the soul. When you understand that God exists as the reality of all reality, and nothing else is real, it's all, whatever is without God is a delusion. There can't be anything besides God. There's not two truths. There's God and there's a world. There's two truths existing side by side. That's not the meaning of truth. Truth is one. Advaita. There's one truth. And either you are living in that truth or you're living in what is not true. That is Vedic understanding. To live in truth means to live in conjunction with God, in love with God. And to not live in that is just ignorance. And any knowledge that you cultivate without that understanding, it's just leading you more and more into ignorance and illusion, and covering you and entangling you with that illusion of non-God existence, non-godly existence. And if you think there's a little God and a little material and they can kind of get, that's also God is the whole, everything is there. God is the totality of all truth. That is the truth.
Why does the rest of it exist?
Sorry?
Why does the rest of this exist?
All right.
For those who want to forget God. That's insane.
So in what you just said, you're assuming that the rest of it is separate from God, even in that statement. That's the whole thing. It's all there, but it's all God. That's the truth.
So then by helping others, I am serving God.
If you're doing it in that consciousness, most people are doing it completely blindly, not ever having that as the actual center of their heart when they're doing those things, actually trying to connect those things to serving God. Maybe people even say that, but are they actually doing that? That's where it all is. It's an internal thing. You can say you're doing that, you can not even think about it, whatever the case is. If that's really where your heart is, and then you're doing that thing, then you're actually doing it. But it's a matter of what the consciousness is, yeah.
what we're conscious of when we're doing things. This world doesn't have to be is not bad in itself when we're conscious of Krishna. When we're not conscious of that, then it all goes foul. All goes for some other purposes that are not the proper use of the soul's existence. That's according to Vedic literature. I know many people don't believe in those things.
Well,
So
when
but they
people
do.
are selfish, like you were saying before, that's when the bad stuff happens, because they're
Not
being
only
self-centered.
that, not only that, but if they're forgetful of Krishna, that's also considered bad. Even they may be good in this world, that's also considered bad, because they don't know anything about their relationship to God.
But then at the same time, like when I was reading, when you do something good, and if you are conscious of like, oh, I'll do this deed to please Krishna, that doesn't count as good, because you already, you already expect a reward from Krishna for that. So, this is what it is. So it is like a stick with two ends. Because if you do it unconsciously, you are not aware that you're doing it for Krishna. And it counts as a plus, like in you unconscious. But if you do it consciously, remembering of Krishna, that doesn't count as a good deed.
I think, honestly, from my perspective, if you do things consciously without expectation, then that's good. But if you do it consciously and expect, I'm going to do this because I think I'm going to get this back, now you're being selfish again.
Right.
But if you do it with no expectation, I don't expect anything back from this, I know I'm going to be able to help this person, and I expect nothing. It's different.
But then, you see, like what I see, like I'm going to help this person or this organization or whatever, just because it's a good deed. And like from my point of view, in this situation, I'm just thinking I'm conscious of doing something good. But if I'm conscious and I'm thinking about doing something positive, it's like in my mind, I'm forgetting at this point about Krishna, because I'm doing it for somebody,
That's what Krishna was saying.
not for Krishna.
But even if what you said, if we're doing something good, hoping to please Krishna, right? And you're saying that it's
No, if I'm doing and hoping to.
yeah. But even so, Maharaj talks a lot about the subjective evolution of consciousness. You know, it's an evolution. So if you're doing something not related to Krishna at all, even if you're trying to get a good reaction from him for it, you know, that thing, even though it's not the highest, is still at least in reference to him. So in the scale of that subjective evolution, it's a step in the right direction, because at least you're in reference to Krishna. And then if you're sincere and you keep going in the way that is prescribed by the Vedas and through Guru, then you'll go to the next level after that. But at least it's still in reference to God, in reference to the center, so it's still going in the right direction, as opposed to not being connected at all. You know?
Right. I was thinking yesterday, they had this talk on NPR about butterflies. And I love animals, nature, and I'm looking at them, thinking about them, and well, they have eyes, and when, you know, all animals, when you interact with them, or you see their behavior, like to me, they also have souls. And I was just thinking, well, maybe like our souls were at some stage, maybe thousands of years ago, in our reincarnations, we were these insects, or maybe because their life is not envious. Okay, there are a lot of a dangerous life for them, their life, let's say like that, right? So I'm thinking, well, maybe when we die, when our bodies die and our souls go to God, and if somebody was leading really bad lives and forgot, was not conscious of God, then their souls sent back to earth, or maybe even to some other places, we don't know, into the lower forms. I was just thinking about it.
Yes, definitely. If you act like an animal, you'll become one. Anyone have any comment?
Dice verse, dice Brahmanda Brahmite Kunava Gyavan Jiva. Guru Krishna Kripa. That means that the souls are going in samsara in different bodies, like different bodies in the Brahmanda, in the universe. And this just when they receive the Kripa, like the mercy of Guru and Krishna, then we get the chance to get the Bhakti Lata Bija, like the seed of devotion, the Bhakti. And that is like the beginning of the soul to getting out of this material universe. But otherwise are going up and down according to the karma, going from a small species, like a lower species, to demigods in the same universe, up and down. Depends on my karma. If I'm going light or left all the bad karma, I get better birth. But then when that karma finishes, I'm going down again. So we're going again and again and again for millions and millions of times. But when you get the connection with a real devotee of Krishna, then we can get what they call Bhakti Lata Bija, like the seed of devotion. And from that seed of devotion, the real liberation starts to get from out of this. Otherwise, we're going up and down.
It's interesting you mentioned butterfly. Because a butterfly doesn't start out as a butterfly, so it doesn't grow. And he has this insatiable appetite. And he's destroying everything that he touches. You know, whatever he's on, he'll eat that whole, destroy that plant. But as soon as he enters into that, what do they call it, chrysalis, right? His becomes transformed, totally transformed into this beautiful color, and flying around, and it actually gives benefit to the flowers that he visits, because they have that proboscis, that little straw that they take out the nectar. But in passing from one flower to another, they actually help to, what do you call it? Pollinate them, so that they can actually grow. So it has a completely different function. So that's the same thing with the soul. Soul in this body is just a consumer. Thinks himself as a consumer. And there, in that world, he becomes a donator, a dedicator, a servant of all, and beneficial to everyone, and very beautiful.
I like that analogy, actually.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Then? Alright, so Jnane Kato, I would attain the fulfillment of life with knowledge. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna says, Saram karma akilam artha jnane parisamkrite. For Arjuna, all actions culminate in knowledge. We learn from our experiences, in other words. But say jnana durlabha, this knowledge was useless. Knowledge alone is unable to fulfill one's spiritual desires. This is explained by Mahaprabhu to Srila Sanatana Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhava, Krishna Bhakti Hoya Abhideya Pradhan, Bhakti Mukha Niriksha Karma Yoga Jnana. Esava Sadhanera Ati Tuksha Mala, Krishna Bhakti Vinga Tata Dike Nari Pala. Krishna Bhakti is a fundamental means of spiritual progress, because the soul is by nature an eternal servant of Krishna. Karma, pious action, yoga, self-regulation, and jnana, knowledge, are all dependent on bhakti. They have no actual power on their own. Without Krishna bhakti, they are all unable to deliver results. So jnana ajnana, that knowledge is ignorance. All knowledge of the mundane world is really illusory knowledge. In other words, ignorance. It is described in the Kalpa Upanishad, Kata Upanishad. Avidyayam mantare vartamana swayam nira panditamana manyamana Tantram yamana pariyanti buddha antenaiva niyamana yatanda. Insincere fools who remain in ignorance yet consider themselves sober, are free from any illusion, and wise, learned authorities, are deluded just like blind persons being led by other blind persons. So, Jada vidya, jivake karye gada. Mundane learning makes an ass of the soul. This refers to apada vidya, inferior knowledge. That is, knowledge which construes material objects as meant for one's selfish enjoyment. In this regard, shortly after returning from Gaya, Nearby Pandit advised his students as follows.
Can you elaborate on that one, please?
Making an ass of the soul?
No. This refers to inferior knowledge, that is knowledge that consists on that one. Can you elaborate on that?
Jada vidya jivake kare gada. Huh? That's what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, jada vidya. Jada vidya means material. Jada means matter. And vidya means knowledge. So knowledge of matter. Huh? And jivake kare gada. Gada means ass, or foolish person. So kare makes, and jiva is the jiva. It makes the jiva an ass. It's telling you. That material knowledge makes the jiva an ass, because the soul is spiritual. It's not material. Well, learning all material things is just directing the real knowledge that the soul is capable of into something that is totally foreign to him. Like you teach a fish, you want to teach a fish how to walk on the land.
Not gonna happen.
You're not going to help the fish by that kind of teaching. You know, you can take the fish out an hour each day and say, try to walk, kind of use your fin. That kind of knowledge is useless for the fish.
Well, it's for fish, but let's say we acquire knowledge that helps us in our careers, because we need to make money. That's just knowledge also to apply to construe material object as means of one's selfish enjoyment. It's not really self-enjoyment, because I need to buy food, I need money, I need to have knowledge, material knowledge, yeah, not spiritual.
Well,
to make money and to
it's
buy
true. From a
food,
practical,
dwelling,
from a
stuff
relative and
right?
practical point of view, it's correct.
Yeah.
What you're saying. However, this is talking from the absolute point of view. There are two viewpoints: the absolute and the relative. From a relative viewpoint, of course, what can we do? But from an absolute viewpoint, you are a soul, and the knowledge you should be cultivating that will be helpful to your soul is knowledge of God. That knowledge won't help. And if you just do that type of thing, worrying about your livelihood and all that, that will be.
Goes back to don't forget, like the child, don't forget about God.
Then it won't be helpful. It'll be more just helping you forget your real position, and that you don't want. I mean, if you have to live in that way and you have to earn your living, then at least try to cultivate some kind of spiritual relationship. That's why Mahaprabhu gave, in this age especially, that you chant Hare Krishna. If you can do that much, you'll be benefited. Krishna says, you don't have to become a perfect person. You don't have to become self-realized, Krishna conscious person. If you just chant Hare Krishna, because of the kind of age that we live in, the kind of mentality that people have, totally unconscious of God, then you just chant Hare Krishna. That's enough. And then he will take consideration of you. He will take charge of you. For that person who was of that nature. Of course, for those who understand a little higher, they may recognize afterwards, I've been wasting my time there. This is my real benefit. This is my real salvation. This is my real fulfillment, is lying in this direction. That may come in our life. Then when we realize that knowledge is not useful, even though I was at that time making a living and was able to survive and even come to Krishna consciousness. But later on we'll realize, but that wasn't real knowledge. That was, how to get along in this world. That's not my real position. And then if I can just continue in that phrase, then another life will come, and another life I'll be doing the same thing. Okay? But if I can make some progress this life and recognize that there's a knowledge that is useful to me for my eternal existence, and then cultivate that, that'll be to my benefit.
Maharaj,
No.
do you think one of the characteristics of material knowledge, it basically is thinking that we're the controller, right? And then all this knowledge that we're developing is based off of us thinking that we need to excessively control our lives, and it should happen the way we want it to, and we want to be this when we grow up, and then we have to do these kind of things to perpetuate that career and to maintain things in a certain way. And then something happens that you didn't expect, but then you try to control it and steer your life back to the way you thought it was going and the way you wanted it to go and all these kind of things. And that's what this material knowledge is that makes an ass out of the soul, right? But then it's, if you can go in the direction of, spirituality and God, and then you continue to humbly approach that direction, and then as life slowly shifts in whatever way it may shift, and we surrender to that result, then that's how we can differentiate between material knowledge and the material life versus what's necessary for the spiritual life, and how we're not so much the controller. Actually, Krishna is the controller, God is the controller, right? Right.
Is he there?
You see the just books. Yeah.
All right, yes, that's the idea. I mean, what do you want to say anything? Have you ever seen, I've seen in these magazines, and the, like magazines and newspapers, whatever, see, knowledge is power. You ever see that?
Yeah.
Knowledge is power. You have knowledge, you have to be power. That's the idea of knowledge. Their idea of knowledge, how to become powerful, how to lord it over nature, how to, be able to be an expert materialist. That's not knowledge. That's ignorance.
So
Because it leads you into further forgetfulness of what you really should be doing.
So the knowledge is important to a certain point, but the most important, or the absolute importance is to get some spiritual knowledge, because otherwise the material knowledge will always help you in some way, but no, it's not so absolute. Yes.
I feel about knowledge. Knowledge, it's useless if you cannot apply it.
That's what I was gonna say too.
Like when I once went just to check some people who study Bhagavad Gita. Oh, we went through they went through 3 chapters in 5 minutes. Oh, we go through the book. Oh, we covered the book. Oh, we know. And I'm thinking, well, you don't know, and you don't know. That's not the studying. There is no conversation. I asked them a question, and so, well, he got stumped, and he kind of like, I don't like people who ask smart questions. Basically like that. He said, I'm thinking, this is not acquiring a knowledge, and this is not, to say just like, we read the book. That's not knowledge, because you have to live that knowledge.
Yeah, that is calling, they say Gyan and Vigyan. Gyan is like knowledge, theoretical knowledge, but the Vigyan is the knowledge that you apply in your life. So the importance is not to read Bhagavad Gita, it's to live the Bhagavad Gita, to live in your life, to apply it. Because otherwise it's just to read something and that's it. If you don't apply in your life, it doesn't make sense. You can memorize the whole Bhagavad Gita, but they don't live it.
They don't understand what is it all about. You have to live it.
Yes. To apply
It's
in your
like
life.
other people, the politicians, they say big words, you have to be this and this, but they don't live it themselves. The same thing as with
They
us.
say, do as I say, but not as I do. So people, they do that. They just live pretending to know something, but they don't live that. And it makes no sense. We have to look for the person who is a real bhakta, the person who lives the life in the way that as he teach. That's why the guru is so important. Because the guru is the person who have vigyan, that knowledge, the practical knowledge, and he can help you. The people, they only have the gyan, but they don't practice, they will not help you.
So we have to experience. Spiritual life is something that can be experienced. It's there, we should be able to experience it. Krishna is there, we should be able to experience that. If we don't have the experience, this is what you're saying, we don't have the experience of what we're doing, then we're just living in some kind of a fairyland, right? So, must have. Actually, spiritual life is the only direct experience we can have. Everything else is indirect.
I want to share something.
Okay.
I think now I misplaced a wallet, and I know that I don't know where it was, but I was looking for half a day probably. And I have a dear friend who was very religious, and he I told you in April, and I consider him now kind of like my spiritual angel, something like that. So I was like really desperate of finding this wallet because of driver's license and to credit card, something like that. So I started chanting Hare Krishna, our chant, and then I took his photograph, and I was just like looking and thinking about Krishna, and then I spoke to his spirit, not to his name. I spoke to his spirit in my mind, and I said, like, you my only guardian angel. I need your help. And I didn't ask, like, give me help, blah, blah, blah. And I just, like, I referred to him in my mind, close the eyes, Hare Krishna, and I at him, look. And then when I got up, I straight went to the table. There was some pile of stuff that I had there. And my hand went to lift, and there was my wallet there. And I went, and I said to him, thank you, my angel. Because I believe that he went to Krishna. And his soul, not the body. His soul went there, and I said, like, I want to connect with you.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Devotees experience that every moment of their lives. Because they're conscious of Him, they recognize His mercy, His hand is in everything. And nothing that happens in their lives is without His involvement. They know that. When we become Krishna conscious, that is what it means. Like God is present everywhere, omnipresent, omnipotent. You know, we hear all these things about God. When we become conscious of that, of Krishna as in that sense, then we'll see it every moment. He's interacting with us and we're interacting with Him. And you don't see otherwise. Krishna's mercy. Krishna's mercy. It's nice, it's beautiful to be able to come to that stage. But also, sometimes there's feeling of absence, of separation, that He's not there anymore. That's also a very high stage. One can still remember Krishna even when that is not present. You don't forget. You realize Krishna is playing hide and seek with you. Or is trying to increase our remembrance of Him, our feeling of love for Him. Sometimes absence makes the heart grow fonder. Now, if we become too familiar, He might feel some kind of, and what do they say? Familiarity breeds contempt, something like that. They don't become so used to Him as saying that, oh, my servant is nearby. We don't want that. Yeah, but these are all, this is the way a devotee experiences life. Always a remembrance of Krishna, somehow or other, in positive and negative situations. That's what I mean by experience. One can come to that stage where he's always remembering Krishna and always feeling that connection. Okay? That's a real thing. It happens in a devotee's life as he makes progress in spiritual development. Okay? That's what we want to come to. That's called Krishna consciousness. Always remembering. Smaranam. Krishna Smaranam. Always remembering Krishna. All right, now let's see. Next one. All right. gana haye samsara
boya,
avikumari
kakala,
Varnakye ekana saktira bhavave kichuna hilage bhala. I became such an ass and bore the burden of my household for so long. Now aged and devoid of strength, nothing brings me any pleasure. The Sripad Bhagavatam, Sri Rama's comments, Krishna himself explains. Yasatma buddhi kunapeti dhatuke svadi kalatradishu boma iyadi yatirtha buddhi salila na karhichich jane svadigeshu sa eva gokara. One who considers his decaying material body made of mucus, bile, and air to be his actual self, but does not realize himself to be a servant of the Lord, who considers his spouse, family, and associated paraphernalia to be his possessions, but feels no affection and detachment for the Lord's devotees, who considers a graven image made of earth or other material elements to be the Lord, but has no reverence for the Lord's devotees, and who considers a body of water to be a place of pilgrimage, but fails to understand that the Lord's devotees are the ultimate place of pilgrimage. Such a person is an ass. Among cows, a foolish beast fit only to bear the burden of carrying food for another animals. Krishna explains the components of his inferior energy upon Prakriti in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Bhumir apanalo vayu kamano buddhir devacha ankara iti ame bina prakatirastuda apareyam. Now, earth, water, fire, air, space, mind, intelligence, and false ego are the 8 divisions of my inferior material energy.
I want to share something.
Sorry?
I want to share something. I just like when we read
Okay.
about the cow. In my native language, Russian, and in Russia everywhere, we use the word ass every day as to refer to a stupid person.
It also means a donkey.
Yeah, the donkey ass, asshole.
Yeah.
Oh, so like.
Yeah, but
I see
we
a
use
lot-
that here too, like that. Ass means a foolish person.
Well, they so look ass, not that much like there. Here they like what they say stupid, you a moron. What else?
Jackass.
Well,
Maybe
sometimes
that's
yeah,
used.
jackass.
Foolish
Jackass
person.
mainly like jackass mainly like to a man. They say.
It's a
Right?
harsher way.
Yeah.
It's a harsher name.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a harsher name.
To minimize a person.
But we don't use this like moron and
Okay.
stupid like I just see like because a lot of words in Russian and come from Sanskrit, and when we read I always see like connections, references.
Yeah. This word,
Gokara.
Gokara. Gokara. Gokara there. Saeva Gokara. That means a cow. Go kara means a cow or an ass, an animal in other words.
Kara, and in Russian cow is korova.
What is it?
Korova. Just va
Yes,
and
yes, see?
korova. That's where it comes from. Korova.
I like the way it describes the decaying body, bile, and I'm like, oh, like, yeah, you're really putting it in perspective.
Well, people don't usually talk like that, right? But that's what it is.
Well, because this is what it is.
I know,
Like, you
ultimately.
Think about it. It's only even the little kid when he's just born. What do? Pee and poop, yeah. and then look, everywhere, like disgusting.
Jivana yatana haira
Ekana sevidya avidya bela vidya vala gati la vishama se vidya haila shela.
Now my life has become agony, my learning has proven to be ignorance, and the burning pain of that ignorance has become unbearably tortuous. My learning, so-called learning, has turned into a spear that has pierced my heart.
Tomara charana vinaki chudana samsarina chayara bhakati vinoda jana vidyachadi tuya padakare sara.
I should tell you that this is something he's actually experiencing, feeling. Although he's preaching through this way, but he's actually experiencing it. You can tell this is very sincere, and not just making up some story, you know. But he's a great devotee. We should not think that of course he's saying these things, he's some person in ordinary distress. The devotee can feel very, very lowly also. As a great one who can actually experience his humility in this way. That is a great soul. Great soul doesn't mean he can just expound so many different philosophical truths, but he can actually feel how humble, how insignificant they are. The more you can experience the infinite, the true infinite, the more you have to experience your own insignificance in respect to that. And the more you feel you're in touch with the infinite, the less you have contact with that. Because the infinite means ungraspable, inconceivable, something beyond, totally beyond our comprehension or reach. So that feeling of great humility, this is the whole point that he's making in this chapter, showing that. And you have to feel that humility if you are actually making that progress to the infinite world. And that is the beginning. If you don't have that, you haven't even begun to approach the infinite. So, then, what does he say here? Oh Lord, there is nothing of value in this material world other than your feet. Bhakti Yoga abandons all mundane learning and accepts your feet as is all in your knowledge. Yovane yakana dhana upajane hainu vipula kami dharma samaya grihana kara hainu dakana ami samsara pataye tahasa sahita kalachaya kanugata Bahu sutta sutta janama lahila marale hainu hata. When I was young, I became greatly desirous of earning money. Remembering my religious duty, I took the hand of a wife.
I established a household with her.
Yeah, that was it, yes. What's that?
Number
The second,
That's it.
Scroll down.
Huh?
Scroll down.
yeah, the second.
we haven't
No,
chanted.
no.
We haven't chanted it yet. We have to chant.
No,
Ah,
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, because I had two in the first one, 1 and 2.
Yes,
so
you're right, sorry. Dharma Samaria means remembering my religious duty. This refers to the injunction, Sastriko Dharma
well, you
Akshaya.
missed.
No, no,
He
no.
has to
it's
read.
the
This
sec-
is for number 1.
The first verse had
Ah,
2.
it's for number 1?
That was for number one.
Ah,
So that was a comment on number one.
Mhm.
Remember, refer to this, the injunction, Sastika Dharmam Akshaya. One should practice religion with a wife.
It's okay, you don't. It's in-
I never heard that one before, but that's,
yeah, and what about the people who don't have a wife or husband?
yeah. But this is talking to people in general.
Back in the days, everyone had to have a spouse.
So let me
Okay.
just, you read the some? Can we read this?
No.
We.
No.
This is number 3.
Samsare bhara bhadini adini achala hailagati bhadake Asya Giranai, Astirai Latati. Yes, I established a household with her and wasted so much time. We had many sons and daughters, and I became distressed at heart. But number 3 was the burden of my household increased day by day. My progress toward attaining the goal of life came to a standstill. As old age came and besieged me, my mind became disturbed. Now, I should mention, Bhakti Thakur was writing this. You know how many children he had?
10.
Nine.
Huh?
I remember.
13.
9 or
13.
13.
Wow.
Oh, no wonder he is saying that he was wasting his time. In the beginning, remember? At night.
Hare Krishna. Hi, Hare Krishna.
Get some chairs.
Hare Krishna.
Get some chairs here, you want.
That's okay. Oh, you want chair?
Please, yeah,
No, she's putting that thing.
please sit on a chair because we're looking at the screen here.
Do we want to keep it open? Yeah, we need to put that in there.
She's reading
That's
from the
it.
screen, so it might be easier
Oh,
to see
okay.
if we could do a chair.
Yeah, okay. Sorry to interrupt you. We came in the middle.
Okay. Anytime, you're welcome.
That's very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you. What's on here?
We're discussing one of the books of the great acharyas, Bhakti Thakur, and he is discussing the topic of Sharanagati. Sharanagati means surrender. And Krishna, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, the whole Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells what the meaning of the Gita is. When he says, Sarvadharmam parityaja, mam ekam sharanam vraja. Don't worry about all your other duties. If you surrender to me, you will get the perfection. And all your other duties, they can be neglected if you can remember me and you come to me and surrender to me. Then you will find the perfection of your life. Your life will be perfected at that point. Because that's what your life is meant for. We're not bodies, but we're souls. We have a spiritual identity. And that spiritual identity meets its success only in spiritual activities and spiritual knowledge, knowledge of God. So this book is about Sharanagati, how to get to that point. Clear up the illusion of what our existence is meant for. Not meant for just eating, sleeping, and mating, and defending like animals. Have a polished animal society, that is not what life is for. The revolution is being created by Krishna and Mahaprabhu. They are creating a revolution, and they're only satisfied with a revolution, spiritual revolution in life. They won't settle for any material substitute. It won't work. Anyhow, so he's saying how he, as a householder, he was wasting his time because the householder life means just material life. That's not the purpose of the soul. Of course, it's okay. There's no problem having a household and wife and children, all those things. But we should understand, where is the real goal of life to be found? Is it just having a family and kids and then die? That's not the purpose of life. So this is what we're talking about here. Then it says, Achala hayi lagati. My progress towards attaining the goal of life came to a standstill. This is also found in the Srimad Bhagavatam when Sri Prabhupada to Maharaj Nimai said, Karmanya hara bhamananam dukkha hatyai sukharya cha pasyat pika viparyasam mituni charinam nirnam. One must see that those humans who unite in conjugal relationships and make endeavors to eliminate their distress and attain happiness through sexual relations, producing offspring, accumulating wealth, maintaining a household, and so forth, incur the exact opposite result. And in Vardakya Ashya Astira Hailamati, as old age came, my mind became disturbed. Seeing everyone suffering an illusion as he wandered throughout ancient India, Shankaracharya would lament. Balastava Kridashakta Tarunastava Karuni Rakta Vridhastava Chintya Magda Pare Brahmani Kopina Lagna Mutkara Stotram. Boys are attached to play, youths are attached to young women, the elderly are absorbed in worries. Alas, no one is conscious of the supreme, absolute power of Brahman. This is the thoughts. These are the thoughts of a realized person, of a realized soul. He doesn't think in the same way that ordinary materialists think. Ordinary materialists think, I'm going to have a family, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have that. And in old age, my kids are going to take care of me, and we're going to have a very happy life together. That's the ordinary way of thinking. Not the way a saint thinks. Saints don't think like that. They understand we have a spiritual nature. And they're God. God is there. And we have a relationship to establish. A loving relationship. That whatever we experience in this life is a gift. Something that comes to us, given to us. The sun, the moon, the earth, the air, the water, food, one another. They are something that we didn't create on our own. They're there. Or we were born into that. So it came to us as a gift. Who is the giver of that gift? To forget that is the most important thing. We're thinking of all the gifts we've accumulated around ourselves and neglecting to think of the giver. It's like going, walking down the street, seeing this big house, beautiful house, going in the house, seeing all the food and all the people there and start partying. Who invited you here? You don't even know who owns the house or where the food's coming from, where the people are related to it. That's kind of how it is, You're actually some kind of a criminal for doing that. But you weren't invited. You have no connection with the owner. And that's how we're doing it here in this world. We come here, we start enjoying everything. I'm forgetting where's this all coming from? Who's providing all of this for me? Not the right way to live. So we have to be a little thoughtful. This is a thoughtful person. Saint is a thoughtful person. Doesn't just do things blindly. Consideration, proper consideration, proper estimation of the environment and of his own self and his position there. What's his name? Plato, Socrates, Plato, one of them, said that unexamined life is not worth living. We don't examine our own life. They're not worth living. Animals don't examine their life either. So if we want to live like an animal, you can't. Well, you will take birth as an animal in the next life also. If that's the way you want to live. You can provide the proper body for that. But if you want to live as a human being, whose purpose of the human life is to understand God. It's only in the human life that God can be understood, not in animal life. They can't meditate like that. They don't have that higher developed reason. They have some reason, but to have that kind of reason, they don't. Human life has that, and if you don't want to use your human life for that purpose, then you can be provided another type of life that will serve your interests. So Pidaya Astira Chintaya Charita Ave Jalita Chita Upayana Deki Andakaramaya Ekana Bhaye Chibita Restless with disease and fevers with anxiety, my heart burns with unfulfilled desire. I see no way out of this darkness and have now become fearful. Samsara katini shrotamahe sesha Maranarikite gora Sabasapya bhajitatomaya Eya sarvipala mora Ebe suna prabhu avigatihina Bhakati norakaya Tava kripa vina sakale nirasa Dehamore parasraya. Are you Bengalis?
Very well. How do you know? You
Good
know
evening.
Mike?
They can
Yeah.
read.
So you know what we're
Yeah,
saying.
so we do see that. Very well.
Okay. So there is no end to the torrent of the river of household life, and fearsome death always looms nearby. After finishing all of this, I will serve you. This hope of mine has proven vain. Now please listen, O Lord. I am utterly helpless. Bhakti Yoga prays. Without your mercy, everything is hopeless. Please give me the shelter of your feet. Must come to that point. Sharanagati requires that you feel yourself hopeless. You can't surrender to God if you think, I can do it. I can reach you. By my being good, by my practicing this and practicing that and doing this and doing that, making sacrifices and going to the temple and whatever. If you think like that, you'll never get there. Sharanagati means I can't do anything without your grace. I'm totally dependent upon your mercy, my Lord. I have no hope without you. Not that you think I'm a great devotee, I'm a great Vaishnava or something like that. That won't help us. That'll keep us in the illusory concept of life. But I belong to the infinite, and that can capture me and do with me as it pleases. Otherwise, and in any case, I am hopeless. I have no hope on my own to accomplish anything. And every day you must realize that. You may think you're in a good position, but if that's the case, then what are you doing? You're living without God, without the mercy of the Lord. But if every moment we're thinking, I can't go a step further, I can't do anything unless your grace is there. Unless you bless me, unless it is your will, then I may be of some use if you guide me. What is that verse in the Gita? Guru Maharaj translates it very nicely. I never heard it translated that way. Aham sarvasya prabhavo patak sarvam pravartate timadva bhajanti mad buddha bhava samanvita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. I am the source of everything, Krishna is saying. Even your devotion to me, from me, coming from me. Even your devotion, even my devotional service to you is coming from you. I'm not doing it. I don't have any ability to serve you. If I'm serving you, that's by your grace. You are doing that. You're giving me that chance. You are engaging me in that service. Like the puppet on the strings. Puppet may be acting like a servant or whatever. Even he's not being a servant. That is also by acting by Krishna's grace. That this world, Krishna says, you are in this. You're put in these bodies like a machine. That's going on like a machine. What is that verse? Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sat-cit-ananda. Means even these bodies that we're in. Like you may think you're going to see your relatives in your car, but the car is taking you. You're not going. You can't go there on your own. The car has to take you. Or sometimes people look at the clouds. You say the clouds are moving. No, clouds don't move. They're being pushed by the air. by the wind. Like that, we think we're doing everything. No. There are some forces behind us that are moving us, and then we can't see that. Yet we think we're doing it. And even in the process of serving, of devotion, of love, that is also coming from a source greater than our own self. And that is leading us into those activities. Engage in those activities. So the mentality of a surrendered soul. That's basically what we have to understand. All those things. Bhakti Yoga is trying to explain all those things to us. And this prayer is very beautiful because it reminds us so much, at every angle, like it starts to cover, how we must come to that platform of surrender, how important it is, and how rich and full it is, and how meaningful that is. So by studying like this book, we may be able to come. The heart may be melted, and we'll be able to understand what is our position. What's our position with respect to this understanding of Sharanagati, real surrender. Hare Krishna. Prabhu, you want to say anything? Anyone? Yes. What is your name?
Ram Krishna.
Ram Krishna. Hi, Prabhu.
I hope you'll forgive me because of my ignorance. I'm asking you this question. I hear over and over, Sharpa Dharman as you said, that forget everything, surrender to me. All other duties you forget. Now, say I have my first duty comes, this is my son, my wife. So Ruma and Neil, I have another son, he is attending some other function. So am I going to forget all these, then just serve, again forgive me Prabhuji, so serve Krishna. Can you translate me that?
Can I explain what to do? What are you asking? What do you want?
I'm asking that.
What is the proper understanding?
Should I forget all these, doing my duty to support him, my wife, and doing my, because we are in samsara, we have to have some duties, responsibility. Can we forget that and just stick into I serve Krishna all the time? And at the same time, when my son came, Daddy, I need medication. I'm not responding. Daddy, I need to go to school. I need books. I need Gita. I need Madhava. So don't I need to respond them just, Lord Krishna, I'm nothing, I'm yours. So
then what do you think Krishna is going to say?
Then that's my ignorance. I wish I had that. So couple of things I could say. Did I make a mistake bringing all these elements? So I should have only served Krishna. Krishna is everyone's target. Supreme Lord, Godhead. Lord, that's, we came to the earth, He brought, only He brought to, so I should have just served Him. So we are in that stage.
You're in the Grihastha stage, okay?
Sure.
So there's Brahmachari. I don't know if you ever had a guru.
Yeah, we have.
When you were younger? Yeah.
Yes.
That's called Brahmachari.
We
Before you were married,
initiated, yeah.
Brahmachari, we should learn about spiritual life. Then in Grihastha, we enter household life. We should be prepared spiritually so that we can raise our children and our wife and our own self in a spiritual way, right? In a Krishna conscious way. And knowing what to do, what not to do. And then in the third stage is called Vanaprast. Then the children grow up when we're in our 50s or whatever. Then the stage is called Vanaprast. You know what Vanaprast is?
leave everything.
You
Yeah.
leave your children, you leave your children, they're grown up, they should have a wife,
Like Prabhupada
a
did.
job, or whatever they have, and they enter Grihastha ashram. But you are not to continue with the children, even in your older years, just doing the same thing you did in your Grihastha period. You're to go to temples or travel, pilgrimage, do things like that, and cultivate your life, your spiritual life more thoroughly. You should start out as a student of spiritual knowledge. In the Grihastha ashram, you enjoy your family and things like that, but you teach also whatever spiritual knowledge you have. And then the third stage of life, we should go on pilgrimage, visit the holy places, go and visit the holy men, listen, learn, Bhagavad Gita, learn the Upanishads and so forth and so on. And then in the fourth stage, then we should leave everything and just come meditate on Krishna at our old age. That's the Varnashram system. You understand that?
Yeah, understood.
At this stage,
Why we have to do that last stage? Why we can do early stage?
You can at any time you can take sannyas, but that's only for if you are inspired. You have a calling to go to Krishna. I mean, like Arjuna, for instance. Now, he was a kshatriya. He was a warrior. So Krishna didn't tell him leave everything and just go to the forest and meditate. He told him, you're a kshatriya. You have a duty to fight for the righteousness of the kingdom. He didn't tell him to leave everything. He told him, you're a kshatriya, and you have to fight. This war is very important, Krishna was telling him, because you're saving humanity, the future of humanity. You're saving them from the degradation that could come from the rule by the Kauravas. Kauravas were going in the wrong direction, and they were going to take everybody with them in that direction. Krishna said, no, we can't allow that. You're a kshatriya, you're also a Vaishnava, you're my devotee, you're my friend. I want you to take them in the right direction. And so he said, so you have to fight. You can't go off and just meditate. He told them like that. So he was fighting, he was killing people, even killing his people that were very close to him. And yet, Krishna told him, it's okay because you're doing it on my request. Just like when you go to war, if you go to war and you start killing so many people, when you come back, you're not considered a murderer. They'll say, oh, you murdered so many people. They don't talk like that. You're a soldier, you fought, and now we're going to give you a parade, and we're going to give you a medal, even though you killed so many people. Right? But if you go home, when you come back, and you start killing people, they're going to put you in the jail. Now, what's the difference? What's the difference? You were killing people there, you're killing people, what's the difference? There you weren't doing it for yourself. You were doing it on behalf of the government, of the king, of whatever. Some authority was there. And you were doing it for the betterment of mankind, for the freedom, glory of democracy or whatever. But when you come back and you're killing people, you're doing it out of anger, out of your own satisfying your own means, your own needs. Okay? So here you're going to be punished. There you won't be punished. So in the same way, Krishna is telling you, look, you're not doing this on your behalf. You're not fighting for your own sake. You're fighting for me because I want to see. I've come here. When Krishna incarnates, he comes specifically to set things straight. What is that? Paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya chaduskritam. Yada yada hi dharmasa glanir bhavati varaha. I come at particular times when the world is suffering by going in the wrong direction and leading people into hellish lives and leading the whole civilization into hellish direction. I come at that time and I try to set people right, how to go in the proper direction, the proper adjustment. I come to make the proper adjustment into society. So we have to be conscious of that. Am I following the mission of the Lord to properly adjust my life and properly adjust the lives of those who are around me? That is the essence. That is the essence of our surrender. That I'm participating, that I'm taking part in what Krishna wants. Fulfilling his will, his mission, and not my own or not the other people who are going astray by just following them like so many sheep. We have to know what is the proper thing and how to follow it. And it doesn't mean that you have to go off to the forest to know that. to actually help people understand what is the proper mission of the Lord, we have to practice it in whatever situation He has placed us in. If you are a household and you have children and so forth, you're supposed to not only feed them and give them medicine and whatever that they need, but to actually give them proper spiritual knowledge, proper spiritual direction. That's your duty.
Sure. Still, I'm going to ask, add to this. In Bengali, they say, probably in all over India, they say, serve daridra, those who are poor, serving Narayana. So, like when I am in samsara, garhastha, maintaining, the serving him or others duty, is that as good as serving Lord?
Like I said, when you're serving Him, how do you serve Him? Is it just by taking care of His material needs, giving Him food? Or when you serve others, what are you doing? Are you just giving them food? Clothing
I have
or whatever?
nothing to give them.
Whatever.
Serving.
Are you working for those ends? Are you working for those things, just material ends, in other words? Just giving them some way to live, continue living?
I'm doing that. Okay, if I can serve him well, he will be serving Lord too. So I have to nourish his.
You're missing the point. I'm saying that serving others like that is not your function. That is not your position.
Oh, okay.
You can do that, but that is not your real position. That is not what you should be doing.
That
What
I
you,
wanted to do.
yes, what you should be doing is practicing, learning yourself, and teaching others what is spiritual knowledge, what is spiritual life, and how to make progress in that direction. That is real service to yourself and to others, and all of mankind. To teach them about God, about Krishna, and how to serve Krishna. That is your service. That's what Mahaprabhu wants you to do. What is that verse? Charedeka. You don't remember. Anyhow, Mahaprabhu wants you to be guru. Wants you to become guru. Everyone. He wants you to be a teacher of what is the proper thing. But before you can do that, you have to learn what is the proper thing.
Sure.
What is the proper thing? And your proper thing in your life is to understand what is Krishna, what is Krishna consciousness, what is bhakti, and how to engage in the service of God in that sense. Doesn't mean you neglect everything. You continue feeding people, you have to feed yourself. You don't let them go by the wayside. Because if they can't eat, if they're not healthy, how are you going to teach them anything? Right? So you got to do those things that are necessary, but at the same time, don't forget the ultimate purpose of your life is to understand Krishna and how to serve Him. It will come gradually. How to do that more and more purely. And like I said, if we understand that in the end, it may be necessary to take sannyas. It may be necessary for you. Or you may come to that stage of realization where you're ready to give up everything, and your children and everyone else will understand, yes, that is what you should do. That is what you have to do in order to get back to Krishna. And they also have to do the same thing. Not that they should just remain engaged in material activities their whole lifetime and die on the bed, thinking, oh, my parents, my friends, my teachers, my this, that, the other thing, and remain attached in that way. That will come to an end whether you're attached or not. You're going to lose all that. So don't be so attached to what is going to die. That's not our purpose. Only to be attached to what is meant for death. I said this food is meant for jackals and worms. That's what this body is meant for ultimately. Put it in the ground and who knows what happens to it. It's not the body that we're so to be attached to. There's something more important than that. So much more important. And we have to know that, and we have to instill that in others. That knowledge. And then you can take whatever. If Krishna inspires you at the end of life to take sannyas, then you have to give up everything. It won't be forced upon you. You will want to do that. Your own heart will tell you, I must pursue my spiritual goal out of love, not out of duty or whatever. Out of real love. understanding that Krishna is there and I have much love for him. And I want to just spend my whole life, the rest of my life, whatever I have, in his service, with him, with his devotees, living in preaching throughout the world, or whatever. You don't know what role he has for you, or if any. If you're just ready to sit in a quiet place and chanting Hare Krishna, that may also be possible. But each person depends on their relationship with Krishna and Krishna's relationship with them as to what they will feel genuinely within the heart, not artificially, not from here, but from here, what you feel there in the heart. Your nature will eventually be expressed. Your authentic nature will eventually become expressed in due course of time by Krishna's grace. Now you are here shows already that you're looking for something of that nature. Not many people come here, you can see. So who comes here? They're trying to learn something. If you take it to heart and you actually try to cultivate that, you will eventually understand what Krishna wants from you. One has to be qualified. You have to qualify, so it means Krishna doesn't just talk to everybody like that. It's not so clear. He is telling everyone, but it's not so clear when we're not so clear, when our hearts are not so pure. So we have to purify our hearts. Purify our hearts. Remove all material, what do you want to say? Material imperfections, you could say. The ignorance and the passion, things that are driving our hearts in the wrong direction. We have to free ourselves from that. And we do that not by our own power, but by His grace. And we can invoke His grace to help us to purify our hearts by chanting Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. His holy name has the power to purify our hearts. You can't come in touch with Krishna and remain polluted, remain ignorant, or remain in the materialist. As soon as Krishna's name enters our hearts begin to become purified. Just like when the sun shines on a puddle of urine, it'll purify that place. The urine will be evaporated and the whole place will become disinfected. And it's just by the sunshine. And so that by Krishna's name, our hearts, however dirty they may be, they'll also become purified by the power of the name. There's a process. Everything that requires a process is not something immediately that we may get there. Sometimes, by His grace, that is there. For most of us, it takes some time, some practice. It's called sadhana. Sadhana bhakti, by practice. By chanting every day, getting some mala, having guru, learning, hearing from the guru, reading the shastra, reading the scriptures, associating with the saintly persons. They're very important. The more we can associate with devotees, the more we'll find our lives are becoming more spiritual, more spiritually oriented. If we're associating with materialists all the time, what are you going to think you're going to become? We tell our children, don't associate with such and such because they're going in the wrong direction. Right? If you associate with people who are going in the right direction, you'll also become influenced in that way. Benefit. So try to associate with the right people who are trying to develop the same Krishna consciousness that you are interested in developing. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai.